What's up guys, welcome to the channel. Today we got a 2020 Chevy Silverado. We're going to be installing this Ready Lift 2-inch leveling kit. We're going to show you how to do it. So this kit comes with pretty good instructions here from Ready Lift. Flip it over, you can see printed pictures, everything with arrows. Over here they give you a recommended alignment specs after you install the leveling kit. But where we're going to start is with the vehicle height measurements. We have a chart here that gives us a before and an after measurement. This measurement is taken from the bottom of the wheel to the bottom of the fender opening. So let's go do that. So to measure the front height of the vehicle here, what we do is we'll put the tape measure centered in the wheel all the way to the ground, and we'll record the number of the tape measure right there. So now we're at the back of the car, and we'll just do the same thing. The tape measure's on the ground, pressed against the wheel, centered in the wheel, and right here we have 39 inches. We'll repeat the steps for the passenger side, measuring both the front and the rear height. Once you get those measurements, go ahead and fill out the chart. Alright, next step is to get this front end jacked up and get this wheel off. Let's do it. Now once you get the wheel off, I like to take and lay it under the frame of the vehicle. It does two things. It moves the wheel out of your way, and also gives the vehicle somewhere to land should your jack stand fail. So step one of this leveling kit is to go ahead and put your jack under here, supporting the lower control arm to hold that, just to hold that suspension. You don't have to put a load on the jack or compress the suspension at all. You want to have a little bit of hang there. So once you've gone and supported your suspension with the jack, you can now move towards the top near the upper control arm here. The first thing we need to do is remove the bracket holding the wheel speed sensor. And I'm going to remove both this upper one and the lower brackets. So to do that, get yourself a 10mm wrench and remove the two screws. There's the upper. Now come to the lower. In the back here, there's one more 10mm screw. Same thing. The next part of the process is to go ahead and take the axle nut off. For that, it's a 36mm socket. I'm going to use my impact. Make sure you save that for later. It's very important to keep. The next step is to look at the top of the strut here, where the strut mounts to the frame of the vehicle. You'll see that we have this wiring harness bracket hanging onto some of these nuts. All you need to do is lift that bracket out of the way to gain yourself access to those three nuts. Go ahead and take your 18mm wrench, and all we're going to do up here is crack these three loose. Don't remove them all the way. All you got to do is make them loose. The next step is to go ahead and remove the nut from the upper ball joint holding the spindle to the upper control arm. First thing we're going to do is loosen it. You don't want to remove it all the way yet. Go ahead and try to pull up on that upper control arm. If it doesn't come out, go ahead and use your hammer and give a few taps on the spindle here. If that don't work, try your pry bar as well while tapping. And there you go. You saw that upper control arm move. That is the taper from the ball joint, the taper from the spindle separating. Now as I loosen this up more, you will see that that upper control arm is separating from the spindle. Make sure you're supporting the spindle. There is the chance that it tips forward. I like to take a bungee cord and try to secure it somehow. You don't want to pull on things in the direction they're not intended to go. Find something to wrap it around here. Go over the upper control arm, and then we'll maybe hook to the spring for now. So we got pretty secure. Once you do that, you can go ahead and push your axle back through the hub. Make sure it's going back as you pull the hub forward. Make sure it's not seized. Now the last step that second to last step I found is you're actually going to go ahead and want to disconnect the lower nut from the sway bar link. If you do not disconnect it, your lower control arm will not drop far enough to install this leveling kit. So I'm actually just going to take it loose for now, run it all the way down. The last step of the removal process is to go ahead and remove the 2 bolts on the bottom of the lower control arm that hold the strut to the control arm. Make sure that you're careful here. It's under load. When you take this last bolt out, your strut may want to kind of jog back and forth. Be prepared for that. Get yourself a little tie bar here. Wiggle. And that's what I was talking about, where the strut may want to move a little bit. Okay, once you've done that, you can take these 2 15mm bolts and discard them. The kit comes with the new hardware necessary to put the leveling kit on. So once you get everything disconnected, your next step is to go ahead and lower your jack. This is a good point to have somebody help you support that spindle and push on that CV axle to make sure you don't get stuck on nothing. Take the pressure off the jack slowly. Go ahead and lower it down. That is about all you need. Just make sure you have enough room under the strut to go ahead and install the leveling kit. You can get creative with it, but what we need to do is take these clips here, almost like castle nuts. These are what the original strut hardware screwed into. So go ahead and get on there, give it a pry. Sometimes they come right off, sometimes they don't want to come off. So just be careful next to your CV boot there. Try not to scratch things. There you go. Okay. Next step is to go ahead, have a jack stand back here just under the control arm. making sure that if for some reason this jack fails or falls, hopefully it'll stop when it gets to that jack stand and not go too far. Alright. So here we have our ready lift leveling block, and per the instructions how you want this to go is this way. You want the engraving or the lettering to be engine side of the mount, and when you are under the vehicle you need to be able to legibly read it. So not upside down, but right side up. Reason being is, try to get it on camera there, you see one side, the top side here, is tapered. Alright, so again, bottom of the U towards the frame of the truck. Make sure you can read it if you're under the truck. Where that goes, slips right up under where your strut is. Go ahead and feed your hardware through the strut, through the leveling block. And the next task is going to be to get the bolts to go through the mounting holes in the lower control arm. So to do that, we're going to try to maybe pry a little bit on the strut. Okay, so what ended up working for me is I lowered the jack about another inch, and I was able to just push the strut around and get the bolts to drop right in the holes on themselves. So your next step is to take the supplied washer and nut and thread that onto the bottom of the new bolts. In my case, there's not enough thread sticking out of the bottom of the control arm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my jack and lift it back up. So you see that strut staying in place there. If I reach up under there now, I can feel I got plenty of thread on that bolt to start the nut. Go ahead with your washer first, then the nut. Make sure you get started by hand. There's no reason that it should take a wrench or any sort of tool to start these nuts on the bottom here. If that's the case, check the alignment. Make sure that the bolt is through the hole enough to actually start the nut. You run the risk of damaging that new bolt if you try to force it and it is stuck. Alright, once you got everything seated properly, you can go ahead and tighten down those strut bolts nice. Alright, now that's not a final torque. That is just to give some pressure on it right now. At this stage, we have installed our leveling block. What we need to do now is go back through our first process, but in reverse. So we're going to put some pressure back on this suspension system to raise everything back up. We're going to reinstall our upper ball joint into the top of our spindle. We have to reinstall our sway bar link. We have to tighten the nuts on top of the strut again and put all of our brackets for our wheel speed sensor back in. Alright, so we're all done with our install. Make sure you go ahead and remeasure your wheel well clearances. That's going to do it for today's video. That's a wrap on our 2020 Silverado leveling kit. If you like what you see, hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and stay tuned for the next video.